To our Creator, to the ancestors and beings of the lands we come from, to the ancestors and beings of the lands we now live as settlers, we give thanks. For each other as kapwa, we give thanks. Mabuhay, kapwa! The Center for Babaylan Studies did not begin in 2009. Our work is flowing with the river that has carried our ancestors on the backs of crocodiles and on bamboo rafts, and later on vessels that carried us to Turtle Island. Our indigenous soul has been courting us all along. We heard the call, and now many of us are here learning how to be whole again from the wounds of our colonial history. We are here learning how to listen to the land and the call of our indigenous soul. Thank you Ate Leny Strobel, Ate Perla Daly, Ate Letitia Layson, and Ate Babaylan Magino, who brought the CfBS into being by signing the document incorporating us as a nonprofit organization 10 years ago. Challenged by Sister Mary John Manazan, Benedictine sister, feminist theologian, and president of St. Scholastica College, we were inspired to organize our first International Babaylan Conference in 2010. In the first Babaylan Conference held at Sonoma State University in California, we learned of the beauty and relevance of our Filipino indigenous knowledge systems and practices in an age of globalization. We learned about kapwa, pakikiramdam, and other Filipino indigenous ways of being. All CfBS gatherings have always been holistic and integrative in nature. At the first conference, participants said that it felt like a retreat. The mind, body, heart, and soul were all nourished. In 2012, some of us from the US and Canada traveled to the Kapwa Conference in Baguio in the Philippines, where we continue to deepen our connections with indigenous communities, elders, and youth, and with the Heritage and Arts Academies of the Philippines, led by Kidlak Taimek and Catherine de Gia. We brought back our experiences and the knowledge and wisdom we gained from our Kapwa encounter into our planning for future gatherings. As we held the second Babaylan Conference in 2013, we focused on the importance of myth and storytelling and how the stories carry within them seeds of remembrance that can awaken our indigenous soul. As our communities deepen our conversations about decolonization, we were compelled to address the question of how to bridge indigenous and Christian traditions of spirituality. This became the theme of our 2015 symposium. We invited Father Albert Alejo, a Jesuit priest and advocate for indigenous rights in the Philippines, to be our keynote speaker. And it is from him that we learned the beautiful concept of loob. Jana Lynn Umipig wrote in her reflections, Paring Bert said, "The islands seem separate on the surface, but if you look deeper, you see how connected they are, deep to the bottom of the ocean. Connectivity of all beings." He helped me to understand that Kapwa is seeing ourselves in the other. Loob tells us to see further that we are one with all of creation. He spoke of the call we have to return to the motherland. You feel you want to go back because your loob is in the land. There is a string pulling you back. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Don't cut that string. Don't say you have lost your identity. It is energy. We have multiple identities, and you do not have to leave energy to produce new energy from within. Let it flow. Let it overflow." The memory of energy is everywhere, and it speaks to your loob, storing energy in the body. That's why it brings you to dance when the gong is played. Our culture is not lost. It is in the land, the trees, the ocean, the sound. And when we connect to it, we see it is within. Kapwa, the self and the other. Loob, our inner core. And Pakikikaramdan, our capacity for compassion and empathy. These gifts of indigenous values grow our capacity to embody Filipino indigenous spirituality. By 2016, we felt we were ready to engage with the Squamish communities on Coast Salish territory. Our conference partners, Kathara Society in Vancouver, made this possible. While focusing on Filipino indigenous knowledge and healing traditions during the first and second conferences, the Coast Salish gathering expanded the scope of our community to include our relationships with indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, or North America. The conference highlighted the collective resilience of colonized societies in the Philippines and in North America, and how a persistent return to indigenous practices can bring about healing. Makasasayang pagtagtagpo, or historic encounters between Filipinos and Turtle Islanders, revitalizing ancestral traditions together, intended to build mutual respect for experiences and worldviews we hold in common, as well as a recognition of our historical differences and our diversity. As we were building our cross-cultural connections on Turtle Island, we were also building our connection to living Babaylans in the homeland through Pamati, a gathering organized by Ate Grace Nono that brought together Babaylans from various tribal communities in the Philippines and urbanized Filipinos in the homeland and the diaspora. Again, the two Pamati gatherings in 2015 and 2017 taught us what it means to listen deeply and be taught by the waters, the land, and the elders who remain rooted in the living traditions of the ancestors. Pamati is a Visayan word for listen. In these gatherings, days were spent in mutual listening to stories, especially the stories and voices of those who have been historically silenced, as well as an occasion for participants to get to know each other as kapwa, as members of specific communities, ancestries, and natural environments. Throughout these gatherings, there are many more local engagements in the US and Canada that continues the legacy of the Babaylan spirit. We helped build the traditional Ifugao hut in Ohio, now in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We published books. We mentored each other. We organized fundraisers that themselves became community builders. We offered webinars. Will Gutierrez, one of our witnesses of the 2016 conference, said that the Center for Babaylan Studies is now entering a new phase. And indeed we are. This year, Kapwa Collective in Toronto graciously accepted the invitation to host this year's conference, and there is a new cohort in the core group. As Ate Leny Strobel stepped down as director in 2018, her sister, Lily Mendoza, took over as the new director after years of apprenticeship into the leadership role since 2014. We are deepening our roots and growing our wings. In this conference, we focus on the theme, Learning Land and Unlearning Empire. We seek to recover our indigenous roots while creating kapwa relations with Turtle Island original peoples. This event takes place on Watakanian Kehaka territory. We continue to ask, what does it mean to be indigenous? How does it affect us diasporic people who are living on other native peoples' lands? What does it mean to be indigenous while we live in urban centers enveloped by technology and find our capacity to live in balance and in wholeness being challenged every day? We are settlers on stolen lands. How then do we align our own liberation work in our collaboration and mutual accountability with the land's original peoples and other oppressed peoples? How do we learn to coexist with all created beings, not just human? In figuring out a contemporary ethos based on what we can understand about ancestral spirit worlds and lifeways, generations of native and diasporic peoples are coming together with a common interest in returning to wholeness and healing of wounds caused by historic and ongoing violence and our contemporary culture's disconnection and isolation. In seeking to reroot ourselves in the ways of our ancestors, we bring the gifts of beauty, strength, courage, and resilience that are inheritance from those that have gone before us. Notice how the Center for Babaylan Studies began with the question, How might Filipino indigenous knowledge systems and practices inform our ways of being so we can one more time become the people we were meant to be? Whole, unafraid, standing tall, able to gift the world with our beauty and spirit. And after a decade, our questions only deepen in their complexity and urgency. We wrestle with the shadows of history, with the logic of empire within us, with our many complicities, missteps, imperfect understandings, and failures. Yet we keep asking, and we haven't stopped learning. We are here together. Let's hold each other tight with the spirit of kapwa, generosity, and embrace. Pagmamahal at pagpapala mula sa ating mga ninuno ang mapasa ating lahat nawa. May the love and blessing from our ancestors be ours throughout our sacred time together.